Building Fury. A blade for House Baratheon. Since the guard for this blade needs to incorporate a 5/8" cylinder which holds the quillions. It must be formed from a 1" by 2" block of solid brass. Drilling pilot holes through the guard must be done precisely, in order to create a good fit between the guard and the tang of the blade. I like to fit the guard long before I work on its finished design in case I mess up the fit and need to start over. After filing out between the pilot holes to create a good slot for the tang, I begin the painstaking process of creating slight indentations extending from both sides of the tang slot. These indentations will allow the entire width of the blade to recess into the guard about 1/16 of an inch. I do this work with a high-speed Dremel. It is important to stop and refit the guard to the blade numerous times during this process in order to get the cleanest fit possible. I created the deer antler quillions for the guard off camera and now must create a tang slot through the brass casing and the antler material. I can now check the fit of the rough guard, and how the quillions set inside of it. Now that I am happy with this fit, I can begin to shape the guard. I want the ends of the guard to be slightly concave to match the design of the concave ends of the blade. I also round off all the edges of the guard to eliminate its previously blocky form. Here is a look at the finished guard. I polished it to a high shine and applied a patina off camera. The brass casing on the deer antler quillions should not be visible, but I applied the patina just in case. Now I am beginning work on the handle by drilling the hole that will encase the upper half of the brass cylinder that holds the deer antler quillions. Next I drill the pilot holes in the bottom of the handle block. I then flip the block over and drill from the top to connect the holes. I am then able to file out the tang slot. Here is the finished handle which I shaped and sanded to 600 grit off camera. Now I am hand filing in details on the crown-shaped pommel. I shaped the pommel, sanded it, and applied the patina off camera. Creating the pommel nut in the shape of deer antlers is the most difficult part of making the hilt furniture. Note that I drilled numerous holes and strategic spots around the deer antler design. These holes serve as the beginnings of many of the antler curves and will help reduce the amount of hand filing required. I can only do a small amount of the pommel nut shaping with my small wheel attachment before moving to hours of hand filing. After tapping the bottom of the pommel nut and making sure I have things centered, I finish the piece with lots of hand filing. Here you get a look at the finished pommel nut, after polishing and applying the patina off camera. Now it is time to start preparing for etching the sigil onto the blade. I must first transfer my original artwork to both sides of the blade. This is done with the use of transfer paper and a soft lead pencil. I am now removing the resist from the inside of the shield-shaped sigil, being extremely careful at this point to not disturb any of the resist from the stag. Once I have completed the removal of the background resist, I use nail polish to strengthen the resist around the edges of the blade. I also use it to cover up any scratches I may have inadvertently made up to this point. These slides show the blade as the etching process progresses. Once I have completed the etching, I apply a bluing agent to the bare steel prior to removing any more resist. This allows me to get a darker color into the background of the sigil. After neutralizing the bluing agent off camera, I now use acetone to remove all of the rest of the resist from the blade. I now have a finished blade. This next part of the video attempts to show the process of bedding the handle onto the tang in order to assure a perfect fit each time the blade is assembled. First, I cover the entire tang of the blade and all of the hilt furniture, except for the inside of the handle, with Vaseline. The Vaseline should keep the epoxy I use to fill the handle from sticking to anything except the inside of the handle. After allowing the epoxy to set up, but not completely harden, I will take the hilt furniture apart and clean off the individual pieces. The epoxy inside the handle has now formed to the exact shape of the tang. The finished pieces are now ready for final assembly. Note that I drilled holes for 2 sets of inline steel setup pins off camera. You will see how these assure perfect alignment during final assembly. I am now ready to put the finished dagger completely together for the first time. Once the guard is fitted to the blade and the quillions set into the guard, I am inserting the first set of steel lineup pins. These 1-inch pins assure that the brass cylinder holding the quillion sets into exactly the same place in the guard every time the dagger is assembled. Note that when I slide the handle over the tang, the fit is so tight that I use some old washers as spacers and a nut to force the handle securely down over the brass quillion cylinder. Once the handle is firmly set, I remove the washers and discard them. I am now inserting the second set of steel lineup pins. These pins assure that the pommel will be in exactly the same position each time the blade is assembled. The final piece of the assembly involves a washer and a steel nut that are fitted onto the threaded tang. These will be hidden under the deer antler-shaped pommel nut and afford a very secure mechanical connection for all of the assembled pieces. The hidden connection nut allows the decorative pommel nut to be just that, decorative. Although it is threaded onto the tang, it needs to stop turning in perfect alignment to the quillions. Here is a look at the finished product. I named this dagger, Fury. I created this blade as my vision of a dagger that would belong to House Baratheon from George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe to my channel.